Howdy, howdy. Jordan Sheridan live, Status Coup, joined by the wonderful independent journalist Zaina Day with the Bullhorn Bulletin, a great Substack, which you should all be subscribing to. We'll put the link under the video. It is Monday. What's today? September the 15th. Happy birthday, Mama Sheridan, my mother. My birthday is in 5 days if you want to get the party started with super chats or Status Coup memberships. I am not beyond shamelessly plugging my birthday for Status Coup growth. Boy, Zaina, I'll tell you how the tides turn. How the tides turn. You and I were live a week ago, I believe, when the tragic assassination occurred. By the way, I don't understand. People are like, it was an assassination. Pretty sure that was an assassination. You don't have to be a politician for it to be an assassination. With that said, we were live when this all happened with Charlie Kirk last week and got the horrible news of his death. I'm not going to say it throughout the show, so I'll just remind everyone now. I do think it is horrible. I think you would agree that he was targeted, obviously killed, regardless of opinions on him. I think political violence in general is horrible. And although, JFK once said, when you make peaceful revolution impossible, you make violent, when you make peaceful resistance impossible, you make violent revolution inevitable. I understand the sentiment. However, I do think the violent part, even if you think there is no other way, the more violence perpetrated, the more the oligarchy, the more the deep state is going to fire back on you tenfold. So besides the morality, it just doesn't work. But obviously, this has been the biggest topic in the news. It has a lot of different tentacles we're going to go through. But I will tell you, I'm old enough, Zaina, to remember Republicans ranting and raving about left-wing, quote-unquote, cancel culture, which was not so long ago. And now, because somebody beloved to them, again, whatever you think of Charlie Kirk really doesn't matter in this respect. Now, and these were the same people saying even hate speech is protected free speech. We're talking about politicians who, in the Republican Party, who said even hate speech should be protected. They called the Democratic Party the anti-free speech party. You had so-called leftist YouTubers saying that Trump and Republicans were the party of free speech, which I always got a giggle about. Again, I'm not saying the Democratic Party is pro-free speech. None of them really are. Republicans, Democrats, 99% of them, they're pro-corporate speech. They're pro-status quo speech. So it was always kind of a fantasy that either was better on censorship. They'll let you protest. If you get a little too rowdy, they'll use their private army, their public army, i.e. the police, to crack your skulls in. We've seen it at Standing Rock, Black Lives Matter, you name it. But boy, they are now going on a full-on crusade. They, meaning right-wing activists, right-wing extremists, Republican politicians, the President of the United States, to itemize, clock, identify anyone they believe made insensitive or inappropriate or morally repugnant comments about Charlie Kirk after his assassination to get them fired. Whatever the case, fired is the worst of them. And I got to tell you, putting aside whether you think certain comments go too far, putting aside whether you think certain professions shouldn't be making comments like teachers, we've seen some teachers fired, this and that. It sure seems like these Republicans who are ranting against Democratic censorship had no core ideology to it. Before we get through the long list of examples, because we have a long list, what are your thoughts? Because we are basically seeing a full-on organized campaign now to get anyone who says anything they deem inappropriate or dancing on his grave to be fired or reprimanded.
I think it comes back to your description of political violence, right? And what they consider political violence and not. I would consider what happened to Tortuguita at Stop Cop City, which we covered. 19 bullet holes. The man was assassinated essentially by the Georgia police. His hands were in the air. He was sitting Indian style on the ground.
For those that don't know what she's talking about, Cop City, a years-long protest against a militarized police compound in the forest. They're cutting down forest in Georgia, in the Atlanta area, to build this, I believe, unnecessary militarized police compound. And there were protests for years, and Georgia police shot an unarmed environmental activist, and then tried to cover it up, saying he was shooting at them, which he was not. Go on.
And what we're arming and funding, we're arming and funding Israel to carry out essentially what is a genocide in Gaza. That would be considered political violence on the masses. So what is considered political violence when it is state instituted violence against the people, it's considered something different. Yet these Republican lawmakers, even some Democratic lawmakers, are all up in arms about the response that regular, everyday individual citizens have to the death of a man, the assassination of a man who stoked fear and violence his entire career. So I think the definition of what is termed political violence is starkly clear here. And it is also clear that the GOP, who claimed to people from Turning Point USA, who claimed to be champions of free speech and whined about cancel culture for the last decades now, and have been holding up the mantle of free speech, were never, ever free speech absolutist or even in support of free speech. They'll, with a drop of a hat, cancel, fire, demonize anyone that they see fit that doesn't carry the speech that they want.
And I will say, I don't know the man. I didn't know the man at all, Charlie Kirk. I made my thoughts on him clear last week in the broader context of I condemn the targeting and the assassination, full stop. And if I don't agree with anyone dancing on his grave or saying, he had it coming to him, like, we have to be bigger than, tribalism, and he had a wife and kids, regardless of what you thought. I also find it unfortunate that so much of the mainstream media coverage, which I'm not shocked by, whitewashes who he was. Public figures have legacies, regardless of how they died. You could die just of old age in your sleep, and you have an obituary done of you, or you could die from horrible circumstances like this, which he did not deserve, and you have a legacy. And people are going to talk about that legacy, whether whether they're pro or think it was a good one or think it was an awful one. And you cannot. I was told by these the right wingers now collecting databases that even hate speech should be protected. Under the First Amendment, most hate speech is protected. So it just shows there was never a core ideology or integrity to that position. It was just based on if they feel it's against their side, they're pro-free speech. If they feel the censorship is affecting their side, they are anti-cancel culture and pro-free speech. But when they believe that free speech is, targeting their side, then they want to run roughshod, get you fired, put you on a list, etc. Let's start and smash the like button, share this live stream. By the way, tomorrow morning, a little bit earlier than normal, but I will be live at 9 a.m. Eastern time on the ground in New York City. Luigi Mangione, the alleged shooter of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, is back in court for the New York criminal case against him. As we have covered for every one of his court cases, I will be there outside the courthouse. I believe supporters of Mangione. It's kind of a mishmash. You have people who are out there supporting him specifically. You have people out there who are more just, healthcare reformists out there, not necessarily pro or against him, but out there really about Medicare for all, putting a spotlight on the predatory, murderous for-profit health insurance industry. Regardless, we're going to be on the ground. I'll be on the ground 9 a.m. Eastern. So hopefully you could tune in live. If you can't tune in live, just open it, press like, share it so we can get it out to more people. And we'll be live as long as people are out there to talk to. We don't expect the trial for Mangione, which at this point there's going to be 3. the federal case, the New York case, and the Pennsylvania case. We don't expect the trial to begin until early 2026, but preliminary court case pretrial is going on, and there has been a lot of questionable things going on in this prosecution, all the way from the Trump administration seeking the death penalty against him when far more severe murders did not get the death penalty, or murderers did not get the death penalty, including mass shooters did not get the death penalty. Mangione, for what he allegedly did, is. Regardless, we're going to be on the ground there. As always, we are the only independent outlet consistently on the ground covering what the corporate media covers up. It's expensive. I can't say anything now, but we might be expanding. So please support us. StatusCoup.com/join. 16 cents a day, Zaina. That's all I'm asking. 16 cents a day. StatusCoup.com/join. All right. Let's start with the president of the United States, who I just want to be clear. You had leftists, and let's just name names. You had people like, former leftists like Jimmy Dore, once upon a time, saying Trump is more pro free speech than the Democrats, which was always laughable. He also said he was more anti-war than the Democrats. Right. Absurd. Before I play this clip, let's remind you, Trump and his party are trying to ban books they don't like. Trump and his party have pushed laws to allow anyone to run over protesters with no criminal liability. They have pushed laws to ban pro-Palestine protesters or just Palestinian Americans that are Palestinian descent. Ban them if they don't like their protest. Now, Marco Rubio, I did a video on this earlier. They're pushing a bill to revoke the passports of U.S. citizens who, quote unquote, support terrorist groups, i.e., if you protest against genocide. So not only is this not the party of free speech, they piss on the very principle of free speech, separate from the Charlie Kirk story, to be clear. Let's play what Trump says about who is under investigation now.
They're already under major investigation. A lot of the people that you would traditionally say are on the left.
They're already under investigation?
Already under investigation.
That's scary.
Yeah. So you're under investigation. From what I could tell, they're even going after people that even retweet something that they deem, didn't even say it themselves, retweet something that they deem supportive or anti-Trump. We're not even talking like praising his death or praising the assassination. We're talking about just critical of him when he was alive. They are also, it seems, trying to create databases. We're going to get to that later, of people that are saying things they don't like about Charlie Kirk. To be clear, Trump, when a Minnesota lawmaker was killed a few weeks ago and her spouse, he said, I'm not even going to call the governor of Minnesota to send my condolences. And that Minnesota politician was shot by a far right extremist. Trump, as far as I know, did not make a statement as he did when he...
No flags at half-mast, no calls to end political violence from the current administration. None of that.
No. We know that Kirk himself, Trump, and other Republicans said vile things about George Floyd, including that he was a scumbag. There has been other assassination we know that after Nancy Pelosi's husband, whatever you think of Pelosi, and everybody knows what we think here, after her husband was nearly bludgeoned to death by a right-wing Trump supporter, Trump kind of made light of it. I believe Charlie Kirk, when he was alive, said that man should be pulled out on bail from jail. So it seems like there's just a lack of consistency on the whole moral outrage to it.
Absolutely.
Now, that was Trump. Let's get to, if you have Senator Katie Britt, do you have her, Colin?
What news channel was she on?
Or whatever you have next. It doesn't matter. Whichever video you have next.
disgusting. The rhetoric that led us to this moment, calling President Trump a fascist, calling him Hitler, you had news organizations and mainstream media celebrating that, allowing those things to take place and be said on their networks. Right. That is dangerous. When you look at that, when you look at where we are, when you look at how we got here, now people that are celebrating Charlie's murder, celebrating a political assassination, that should never happen in the United States of America. And Maria, we must do more. We must stand firm, and there must be consequences with regards to people spewing that type of hate and celebration in the face of this. And I believe that there will be, and I certainly plan to hold them accountable. So if you are out there and you are celebrating the political assassination of a man who was exercising his free speech, a very foundational element, a cornerstone of who we are as the United States of America, you should be held accountable. You should be fired. And that is the beginning and the end of it, full stop.
So what?
Huh.
So no matter what your job is, you should be fired for an opinion that you have online. That's a ridiculous assessment. What power does she have to make sure that people lose their jobs over this?
And also, I don't know. Nobody comes to mind on the opposite side, similar to Kirk, but I'll just throw out a name. David Hogg, right? He was a Parkland student who survived, has kind of become a big Gen Z kind of guy in Democratic politics, ruffled feathers at the DNC for creating a PAC that's going to go after old dinosaur corporatists. Not exactly my cup of tea. He's not to my left, but relatively okay. Let's say, God forbid, but let's say he was targeted and killed. You would have a ton of right wingers celebrating because that's the internet. He is very much for gun control because of his experience at Parkland, and a lot of the right wing hate him. He's pretty strong on LGBTQ rights, pro-abortion, all those things. There is plenty of right wingers that would celebrate his or others like him, untimely death. I do not think you'd have these same people coming out saying we need to get those people fired, this, that, the other thing. It is completely tribal. It is completely team red sports. And frankly, it's vile. Now, could you have a debate if you're a teacher or somebody getting paid, with taxpayer funds? There's been teachers fired over this. Should you be openly celebrating this? And then you get to teach our kids? I think that's a reasonable debate. Some would say, yeah, if they want to make the public comments, their job should be protected. Others would say, where do you draw the line? But this basically crusade to fire anybody, even those, they're literally trying to fire people who the only thing they did is post Charlie Kirk's own words, posting his own quotes when he was alive. They're trying to fire people for that, who aren't giving commentary, just posting his own words. And I find it very interesting, Zaina, because his whole thing, even though I don't really think it was, I don't think it's exact, the media is painting it as he was this champion of free speech, champion of open debate. I'm sorry. I don't think it's like a profile in courage to go debate college kids. He didn't exactly debate, most of the time he was debating people intellectually less than him. Doesn't mean all college kids know nothing, but like they're college kids. They have less real world experience. When he actually debated those equal to him, I remember he debated, I believe it was young college kids in Great Britain. Frankly, they ate his lunch. But anyway, the bottom line is, isn't it kind of against what he claimed he was for? Wouldn't the answer, instead of trying to fire these people, be to debate what they're saying? Because that's what he says he was for. Open debate and debating about our disagreements and telling these people why you find it vile that they're posting these things and why you disagree on his legacy. To me, that would be honoring what you say his legacy is, what the mainstream and the right-wing media say his legacy is, which is he was all about debate and all about, he said, when we stop debating and discussing our disagreements, that's when violence happens. So I just think, listen, is it distasteful to celebrate somebody dying? Yes, but I think it's more distasteful to only have selective outrage when it's somebody on your side you think is being when it's somebody on your side that you think is being dishonored or attacked. And I will say this goes beyond Charlie Kirk, because it's going to start here and it's going to go past just people who have been killed. It's going to start. They're going to try to get people fired that they say are, making disgusting comments about people living, or they say your comments are targeting those people or threatening those people. I want to play a couple more. Let's play the next one, Colin.
And let me tell you something I've not shared with anybody, but the last message that Charlie Kirk gave to me before he joined his creator in heaven was he said that we have to dismantle and take on the radical left organizations in this country that are fomenting violence. That was the last message that he sent me before that assassin stole him from all of us. And we are going to do that under President Trump's leadership. I don't care how. It could be a RICO charge, a conspiracy charge, conspiracy against the United States, insurrection, but we are going to do what it takes to dismantle the organizations and the entities that are fomenting riots, that are doxing, that are trying to inspire terrorism, and that are committing acts of wanton violence. It has to stop. And my message is to all of the domestic terrorists in this country spreading this evil hate: you want us to live in fear? We will not live in fear, but you will live in exile. Because the power of law enforcement under President Trump's leadership will be used to find you, will be used to take away your money, take away your power, and if you've broken the law, to take away your freedom, Sean.
Well, Nosferatu there celebrated the death of Jordan Neely at the hands of Daniel Penny. Granted, Jordan Neely wasn't a political figure. He was a human being on a subway who had mental health issues. But because he's just a regular guy on a subway who had an altercation with Daniel Penny, where violence led to his death, Stephen Miller celebrated that as cleaning up the streets.
And
that's somehow acceptable. That's somehow acceptable, but people reacting to a man being assassinated and killed who has fomented hate and violence against others is a bridge too far for Stephen Miller.
I want to make a few points also. Number one, as a factual matter, I know facts don't matter to a lot of people out there. It's still an open question what this guy's ideology is. It's been all over the place. There's some stuff out there that indicate he might have been kind of far right, has some Groyper tendencies, which is the
guy who was arrested, correct?
Yeah, the guy who was arrested, the shooter, the disciple of Nick Fuentes, based on some of the things that were on the bullets. There's reports that his roommate was transgender, transitioning from man to female, and that they were in a romantic relationship. That's not confirmed. There's many reports that he hadn't voted in several the previous elections. He's from a conservative family, a gun family. He was learning as young as 12 how to shoot. So they're making these proclamations on Fox, like while Kirk's body was still, lying there, that this was the radical left when they had no idea anything. And it could come out that he was more left. But a lot of these shooters, they're not all left or all right. And the ones that are typically are more to the right. You had a Trump supporter shoot up the FBI in Cincinnati. I don't recall Stephen Miller saying anything. I don't recall Senator Britt saying anything. Trump saying anything. We already went through the Minnesota politicians that were killed. By the way, Trump, while he was still a candidate this second time after the assassination attempt on him, they were already selling merch. The radical left tried to take Trump down, blah, blah, blah. It came out that the shooter actually was doing Target shopping. he was looking for events with Biden too, because he was open to targeting Biden. So it wasn't even like a radical leftist specifically going after Trump. The shooter that went after, that shot at Trump was going after, what was open to targeting Biden. So a lot of these shooters, in political terms, if they are all or one thing, they're typically extremists to the right. But in a lot of cases, they're kind of a mishmash of a lot of things, or just hate politicians in general. But I just find it's a clear, organized, well-oiled machine in the whole entire Republican Party, I think, for political means, to make this the radical left, when the truth is we don't yet know all the information of what this person's motivation was. And even if he was a leftist, I see more, for the most part, most people in the Democratic Party, most activists I know, and most, influential people on the left denouncing this assassination. That's what I see. The one article I read that actually addressed his legacy, which I thought was pretty damn good, was The Nation, which went into detail on his vile, reprehensible legacy while also condemning the violence. You could do both. I know that's not allowed on the internet. I know nuance isn't allowed. I know you're not allowed to point out somebody's legacy, but it's just incredible to me. They don't blink, don't shed a tear, don't blink an eye if right-wingers firebomb the FBI office, assassinate a Minnesota politician. But in this case, it's time for a civil war. It's just,
even though they tried to paint him as a left-winger, Vance Butler, who killed Melissa and Mark Horton, was actually a right-winger. But either way, he committed an act of political violence. They try to paint him as a leftist to cover up or try to point fingers at us. And that's what at people that lean to the left or demonize the quote unquote left as violent. When in all actuality, most of these cases, it's not someone from that camp.
no, not at all. And the reality is it's what they are ranting about, which is angry and condemning people that are celebrating violence. What they're doing is going to stoke and create more violence, which they know. I think it's actually they, meaning the Republican politicians. I think they know that they're going to create more violence, and I think that's the point. So you could say it's reprehensible, but if you say you're the free speech warriors and you say even hate speech is protected, which I believe Charlie Kirk claimed to be a free speech warrior, then this is the price of the First Amendment. And you might hate it. It sucks, to a mourning wife and his children who are young to have to see that a large swath of the country, hate someone you just lost. But there's no law that you have to join in the mourning for someone. There's no law. Actually, there is a law that says you can be critical of that person, no matter how they died. And I just think this is beyond a slippery slope.
Tone policing to the reaction of a man that helped. Turning Points USA has helped push a litany of policies. They had more than 300 chapters at college campuses. It was a huge apparatus, a huge political apparatus, which I know is why there's so many eyes on Charlie Kirk. However, the truth remains that Charlie Kirk's legacy was literally violence against others, the dismissal of empathy, and the calls for direct violence against marginalized communities. That's the reality of it. You, in some ways, you reap back what you sow in life. And so people are responding accordingly. And for those people to be fired for tone policing against a white supremacist and a white nationalist who's called for direct immediate violence against people, Black and brown people, poor people, marginalized people in this country, is It's an insane place to be, and with representatives on top of that trying to push laws in order to demonize us. It's going to be broad. These laws, I'm afraid, will be broad and sweeping. I fear that Trump may use this for what he was pushing for, that we warned about 7, 8, 9 months ago, of trying to push the National Guard or militarization on college campuses, because that's
Absolutely.
something that Trump had already fomented about.
Right.
So I see this as gearing up for something broader. I hope not, but that seems to be where the winds are blowing right now.
I want to get to a few of the specifics here. So this is from Congressman Randy Fine, infamously has called or insinuated Ilhan Omar as a terrorist. Those celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk must be thrown out of civil society. If you're aware of anyone in the 6th District of Florida, or heck, anywhere in the state, who work at any level of government, works for an entity that gets money from the government, healthcare, university, or holds a professional license, lawyer, medical professional, teacher, that is publicly celebrating the violence, please contact my office. I will demand their firing, defunding, and license revocation. If you don't think I'm serious, I got 2 state university board chairmen fired for less. These monsters want to fight? Congratulations, they got one. So the key word there, celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk. Well, what exactly does that mean? Do you consider somebody reposting negative comments about him to be celebrating? And by the way, they're probably going to be using AI for their database. So we know AI in general is riddled with errors. So they're going to probably use AI for their little database of those celebrating his death, and probably catch up people who are not celebrating, maybe didn't even say anything, and try to get them fired. That's what's going to happen. But I don't what is celebrating? Is it celebrating just to tweet a quote from Kirk? People have tweeted what he said about the Second Amendment, that, this is an acceptable price, an acceptable price for the Second Amendment is, gun deaths in America. People have tweeted that and been targeted for firing. People have tweeted or posted online what he said about, the Civil Rights Act was a mistake, or what he said about black women, I believe, don't have the brain processing power for certain things, or name your list of things he has said. Is that celebrating it to literally quote somebody what they said alive? So I think this is just literally, they're going to cast a very wide net, and they'll just say you're celebrating it. If you don't compare him to Martin Luther King, which I have seen, you're basically celebrating it. I mean, it's vile.
Infuriates me on a whole other level with Randy Fine, because I have watched for the last 2 years Randy Fine celebrate the death of children, the leveling of Gaza, saying that all of the people of Gaza deserve what is happening there. Just a few weeks ago, he said that children who had their legs and arms blown off don't deserve treatment in the United States because they could potentially grow up to be terrorists. This is a man who has celebrated the harm of others on an institutional scale while our Congress funds it. But saying something about Charlie Kirk's assassination that he doesn't like should result in people being fired, removed from their jobs, license revoked. But yet this man sets up as a member of Congress and foments a genocide to an entire body of people. It blows my mind. It takes me to a place where I ask, who does this man believe is human, and who does this man believe isn't?
And it's not just, by the way, trying to get people fired. Colin, if we have that tweet from Governor Greg Abbott of Texas, they're arresting people, apparently. This is what happened to the person who was mocking Charlie Kirk's assassination at Texas Tech. Fuck around, find out. I don't know what mocking his death means. And even if, keep going down. Greg Abbott definitely picked the wrong school to taunt the death of Charlie Kirk. And even if he was, by this, even if she was, by this standard, what about those vile people that go to funerals I forget the name of the group. Very controversial.
Westboro Baptist Church.
Westboro Baptist Church, and they go and taunt loved ones at funerals. By this standard, we should have arrested all those people a long time ago. We don't. We don't. So mocking the death of Charlie Kirk, you're now arresting it. I don't think it's a coincidence that woman was black. It's just literally Banana Republic style shit going on here. And I don't think it's going to stop. And what they're trying to do is frankly what I think Charlie Kirk excelled at, which is to create an imaginary enemy and to distract you from what's really the enemy in America, which is Trump, Pelosi, Biden, Bezos, Musk, Gates, Zuckerberg, the entire oligarchy fucking you economically, fucking the left, fucking the right, libertarian, fucking everyone, to focus on transgender people and black people and immigrants and name your other, and now the radical left. It's just so obvious what's going on. So obvious. You also have a Washington Post columnist, Washington Post opinion columnist was fired, apparently for quoting Charlie Kirk. This is Karen Attia. She says she was fired by the Post, which I believe. If you could open the tweet up. My only direct reference to Kirk was one post, his own words on record. She quoted him saying, "Black women do not have the brain processing power to be taken seriously. You have to go steal a white person's slot." My commentary received thoughtful engagement across platforms, support, and virtually no public backlash. And yet the Post accused my measured blue sky posts of being unacceptable, gross misconduct, and of endangering the physical safety of colleagues, charges without evidence, which I reject, completely false. I'm going to take a wild guess and say Jeff Bezos, the owner of the Washington Post, had something to do with that one, considering he is one of the Silicon Valley Trump dick suckers. Excuse my French.
Well, you know what's telling about this response is it's saying that it's potentially gross misconduct because it's endangering the physical safety of colleagues. So a newspaper fired a reporter, one of their first black female columnists, as noted in the article, because she dared to quote the person who was assassinated in a very measured post, because they are afraid of retaliation against them. And that's telling, because that's saying we are ceding to the extremist right who might retaliate against our paper. And so we're going to suppress free speech. Nothing on here but whitewashing Charlie Kirk. If you do anything else, if you even quote a literal quote from him, we're going to have to let you go because we're afraid of these people. I don't know about you, Jordan, but that's not what I learned journalism to be.
No. Well, most of what they teach you, to be fair, in journalism school, which I didn't go to. I took two classes.
That is not what they taught me in journalism school.
Most of what they teach you is bullshit. But to be clear,
my education was great, so I'll battle you on this one. But I was lucky, maybe.
Well, they taught me in this class. Well, you first go to the police, get their statement, then you go to the government official. So basically go to be lied to first. Anyway.
No, I was taught the opposite. That's very interesting, though.
Yeah, well, what I find, basically what they want here and what they're saying is there should be no price for deciding to be a public figure. To be clear, the price should not be being targeted violently or killed. We've already said that. That's a separate thing. And I hope everyone in my audience, that if you don't agree, don't watch. We do not support targeting political, and there's a lot of people I fucking hate on the right and the left. Well, not really the left, the liberals, the libazine liberals. I do not call for them to be targeted violently or any of that. But they're basically saying there should be no price for being a public figure, meaning people can't have an opinion on your legacy if you die young, if you die of horrible circumstances. People can't make insensitive comments about you. People can't celebrate if you're no longer with us. I mean, basically, they are saying you should be able to, as a public figure, do whatever you want, say whatever you want, whether it's fact-free, whether it's hateful, whether it's stoking violence. We haven't even gotten to the point. It's on record. It's reported he was involved with the organizing of January 6th. Charlie Kirk. He was involved. In the planning and all that. I don't think he was like there storming the gates, but he was in communications to try and overthrow the election. So basically, they want no consequences for if you go out and say I'm the master debater here. I debate everyone, even though it was college kids who I could try to embarrass. You should whitewash my legacy, including
right now it's because he was assassinated, but the goalposts are already being shifted. That if you criticize someone for their political speech or their actions, that you could be quote unquote fomenting violence against them because you have remarks or you have scrutiny of what they have to say, or you even pointing out that what they have to say, even if they say it in a polite way, even if they're not using profanity as far as language goes, that if you just point out what they are saying is fomenting violence on others, what they are saying is dangerous rhetoric, then you could be potentially demonized or pointed at as quote unquote stoking political violence. So the right wing gets to have all the opinions of us that they want, gets to demonize anyone on the left they want, gets to celebrate, gets to have schadenfreude for horrible things that happen, like you said, to Nancy Pelosi's husband or to, Melissa and Mark Hartman, or to demonize George Floyd or Breonna Taylor after their deaths at the hands of police, their killings at the hands of police. Yet we can't even comment on Charlie Kirk's legacy of violence through his own quotes.
It's insane. The whole thing's insane. And to be clear, because Zaina knows how politics works. You've worked on campaigns. I have covered all this. A big part of this also, to be clear, not that Trump or any of them wanted him to die, but let no tragedy go to waste, as Rahm Emanuel once said. Well, this is certainly getting the topic off of Jeffrey Epstein, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is certainly getting the topic off of the big, beautiful bank robbery where they cut Medicaid for their own MAGA base, cut food programs, youth programs. This is certainly getting it off the topic of Trump handing the keys to the government to the world's richest man. Tears for Elon. He's now been bumped to the world's second richest man. I forget who took the top spot, who then stole Social Security and other private data of all of ours. So they're not Trump and the right wing. This is the gift, the early Christmas culture war gift, because this allows them to wage the culture war and take it from a 11 out of 10 all the way to a 25 and move off of Epstein and all that shit and rally the base that they're simultaneously fucking.
One of the news articles that I saw come across my desk from Drop Site News and others was that Israel, with bombs that we have provided for them, struck 2 different buildings that house newsrooms in Yemen and killed 25 journalists. Where's the outrage for that? Where's the outrage for the murder of 25 journalists with bombs that we provide with a country that we're providing cover for, while we're suffering here that we're sending tens of billions of dollars to on a regular basis to fund that machine? Where's the outrage for that from Randy Fine? You won't see that happening.
No. Also, there is now a Charlie Kirk Data Foundation, a searchable database of over 20,000 individuals celebrating Charlie Kirk's murder will soon be available on our website. It will be searchable by general location, employer, and industry type. Political violence could never be the answer. Number one, I could almost guarantee you they're going to use AI for this so-called database, which is often wrong. Funny enough, Zaina, I didn't send it to Colin, so we don't have it. But Elon Musk, Grok, Twitter's AI machine.
Sorry, I was thrown off by Lila's comment there.
Grok basically said, somebody asked, is there evidence that the shooter was a groyper? And Grok answered, yes, there is evidence, pointing to, a lot of the things on the bullet casings and other things pointing to groyper or right-wing extremists. And Elon said, apologies, we'll clean up Grok, because Grok gave the wrong answer. And by the way, Elon over the weekend, I don't have the video, but basically said, you either fight or you die against the radical left, because he tuned into a massive far-right rally in Great Britain.
And that's not fomenting violence somehow?
No,
right?
no. But yeah, nothing to see here, just a searchable database of over 20,000 individuals celebrating Kirk's murder. What celebrating means, who knows? You could retweet something, make a comment, try to get him fired, try to dox him, go to their house, who knows? And again, it is, as I believe, part of his legacy, and not just him. I'm talking Steve Bannon, Ben Shapiro, the entire Fever Swamp, Patrick David, Matt Walsh, is basically, it's a mass distraction campaign. Fox News, it is a mass distraction campaign away from what really ails the country, which is we live in an economic Hunger Games and a new Gilded Age. To be fair, there's also a mass distraction campaign on the liberal side, too. I would say the Pod Save Boys have been laundering DNC politics and the Democratic Party's corporate neoliberalism, warmongering forever. So there is influential hosts, podcast activists on the liberal side. They don't foment the hate that we're talking about, but they do distract their audience with, focusing on social issues, identity politics, this and that.
Sometimes they'll ignore by ignoring the things that are
yes. David
they
Pakman,
cause damage in that way.
Brian Tyler Cohen recently came out that they had a whole, backdoor agreement. Let's not cover Gaza because it's a poison pill to our audience. I.e., we're getting like $8,000 a month from some shadow DNC. I mean, I didn't cover that.
Some great reporting from Taylor Lorenz on the backdoor dealings during the election to podcasters like him and David Pakman and others. Yeah.
And
like we told you, some of these people are getting paid directly by the establishment, and that's why the reporting that we do here is different.
Right. And DropSite has a thread. It's very long, but verified list of some of the 60-plus Americans facing firings, suspensions, and investigations over comments on Charlie Kirk's assassination. As of 1 a.m., September 15th today, there are 50 to 70-plus confirmed cases spanning schools and universities, airlines, tech firms, media outlets, and public agencies are facing discipline. Over half involve educators. This wave of repression and cancel culture is being driven by coordinated doxing from libs of TikTok and allies.
Jeez.
Libs of TikTok, the original free speech warrior is organizing organizing this. So the whole thing, I mean, I got more examples, but we got to switch to another topic. So the bottom line.
I remember what's her name? Raya. The lady who runs Libs of TikTok. She I remember her blowing a gasket when, speaking of Taylor Lorenz exposed who she was. And and how angry she was of quote unquote being doxxed because she was hiding behind, her account. And her account was a massive account that literally would foment violence against people on a regular basis. Yeah. And the irony that now, the same person who claimed to be so much against stalking and so much against cancel culture is helping to lead this crusade against anyone who has an opinion on Charlie Kirk that they don't like.
Kaya Raichik. And by the way,
thank you.
By the way, these are the same people who blew a gasket over people protesting outside Supreme Court justices' homes after they overturned Roe v. Wade. They won't shed a tear if there are right-wing protesters outside professors' homes, teachers' homes, anyone they deem, criticized Charlie Kirk or celebrated his death. So if their right-wing Supreme Court justices get criticized or protested outside their house. Oh my God, call the National Guard. I mean, the whole fucking thing is absurd. The whole thing is absurd. And the point is,
It's
it's
a
not going
mountain
to,
of hypocrisy, really, at the end of the day.
and it's not going to end with Charlie Kirk's death. And I think the broader point here and why Status Coup exists and why, frankly, we're less profitable than we could be if we just picked a side, like most other channels, if we wore a blue hat or a red hat, because it's clearly very profitable to pick a side and just, go to bat for that side. I mean, and just do 100 fucking videos a day on Donald Trump being Hitler. And we cover Trump critically, but we also cover Democrats critically, which is going to be the next story we cover. But I think this goes to show you and why so many people don't vote, unfortunately, and why so many people are kind of just tuned out politically, is because they know it's all just professional wrestling. And it's all fake, a lot of it, where the right-wing media or the liberal media, they're just kind of playing for their team. There's no consistent integrity to it, consistent ideology to it. You look the other way for some things if it involves your team. You blow a gasket if it involves the other side. And that is why so many people have left corporate media for independent media. The problem with that is a lot of independent popular hosts don't know anything about anything and push a lot of bullshit and lies just because they don't know anything about anything. But that's the problem with media and politics. It's become so tribal that there's no there. There's no consistency. So yeah, we'll stay on it. I don't think this is going to stop at a cancel culture crusade at Charlie Kirk's death and those quote unquote celebrating it. I think it's going to shift to targeting people they think or they claim conservatives, right-wing activists are stoking violence against Republican politicians.
Well, I go by
Republican
what
media
Trump
hosts.
says, Jordan. And if Trump's response to the day after Charlie Kirk was assassinated was to immediately blame it on the left, immediately call for further militarization, further deployment of the National Guard, quote unquote, securing college campuses. So I go by what this man says. One thing we can say is the things that we've ignored in his speeches, the things that we've ignored him say through the years, he's making happen. So I don't even think we have to guess on what direction they're starting to take because, this administration has been pretty well open with us about what they're going to do next. What Matthew Miller says, what someone like a Nancy Mace says matters because it's where the winds are blowing, broader than just the social ramifications.
Right. Speaking of where the winds are blowing, if you came to this late, tune in tomorrow morning. I will be live on the ground in New York covering the Luigi Mangione court case, the alleged shooter of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. This is the New York state case against Mangione. Listen, we are not right-wing grifters. We are not liberal grifters. We are in the trenches, guerrilla journalists. We are on the ground. John was just on the ground in D.C. showing you Trump's invasion there. We got great videos from there. We might be going to Chicago or Memphis next, depending on where Trump invades next. I feel like I'm talking like, Michael Moore's movie, Where to Invade Next. Trump kind of backing down for the moment in sending the National Guard to Chicago, but might send him to Memphis. So we might go there. Obviously, we've covered nearly 200. Let that sink in. We've covered nearly 200. When I say we, John Farina, our cameraman, has covered 200 anti-genocide, pro-Palestinian protests. He deserves a goddamn medal. He deserves a Nobel Peace Prize, not Trump. And all of this is very expensive. I'm going to keep it real. Costs have added up, including using freelancers like Zaina, which we're happy to do. So we need to grow our paid membership. We're trying to grow over 1,000 new paid members by the end of the year. So please pitch in, become a member. You could join us, to be clear, for as low as 16 cents a day. It helps pay me, our cameraman, to go out to cover stories like tomorrow. We're going to be outside interviewing supporters of Luigi Mangione, as well as just people who are there advocating for Medicare for all and healthcare reform. And to go on the ground to cover. And also, I might, fingers crossed, might have a new hire to announce soon. So please, please, please support us. The more people that sign up at 16 cents a day, which is $5 a month, the more people we get hire, the more people we could use more consistently, and the more ground we could cover on the ground. I want to do this next story quick, Zaina. And thank you, by the way. Michael Brown just gifted 10 Status Coup memberships. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
So it's kind of being, lost, but obviously there's a big campaign going on in New York City. It ain't over till it's over, but looks right now very good for progressive Zohran Mamdani, or socialist. I don't think he's a real socialist, but that's another story. And a lot of top Democrats are very late to the party here to endorse him, even though they were kicking and screaming in 2016 to the Bernie people, shut the fuck up, unite, dance for Hillary.
What happened to Blue no matter who?
Right. Shut the fuck up and dance for Hillary. Shut the fuck up and you put on your Biden bro hat. But now it's like hemming and hawing. So Chris Van Hollen, a senator from Maryland, had some comments about that. And the Democratic leader, Hakeem Jeffries, still not endorsing the Democratic nominee in the New York City's mayor's race. Let's play that.
Fellow Americans and Iowans, we are at an inflection point. The country's not going to fix itself. The National Party is not going to fix itself by itself. It's up to all of us. It's up to all of you. We need to start now shaping the future. That means winning the key races of 2025 by supporting our terrific Democratic nominees for governor in Virginia and New Jersey. In Iowa. It means in 2025. Yeah. And it means supporting our Democratic nominee in New York City's mayoral race, Zohran Mamdani. He is focused on ensuring that people can afford to live in the place that they work. That should be our goal in New York City, Des Moines, and every town and city and place across the United States of America. Donald Trump and New York's financial elites see that as a threat. The idea that everybody who works in New York City should be able to afford to live in New York City. And they have mobilized to defeat him. Yet, many Democratic members of the Senate and House representing New York have stayed on the sidelines. That kind of spineless politics is what people are sick of. They need to get behind him and get behind him now.
No lies detected. I mean, whatever you think of Mamdani, I have my concerns that he'll moderate a bit. But putting that aside, by their rules, he won the nomination, by a lot. He kicked Cuomo's ass. Polling wise, he's still crushing Cuomo and Eric Adams, who by reports might drop out of the race, the current corrupt mayor. But for some reason, it's a completely different standard when it's somebody who doesn't take money from Wall Street, the fossil fuckers, big pharma, and wants to, do this radical, tyrannical thing like government grocery stores, free buses, etc. So here's
Let's
what
say the tables were turned and Mamdani stayed in the race and ran as an independent. Imagine the backlash and the screaming and the kicking and the crying that we would hear from Democratic Party talking heads right now about splitting the vote, about endangering the race, about how Mamdani should drop out. But we're not hearing that same kind of response from many of the Democratic Party talking heads about Adams and Cuomo, which I think is very interesting.
No. And, just check how much AIPAC money Hakeem Jeffries and other conservative, some of these Democratic Party politicians not endorsing him, think it might be connected. Just a thought. Well, Hakeem Jeffries, his staff, I guess, answered, Chris Van who? Think about that. They are openly mocking a senator in their own party. Chris Van who? Hakeem Jeffries takes Dem-on-Dem swipe at Maryland senator over Mamdani support. Representative Hakeem Jeffries took a swipe at fellow Democratic Congressman Chris Van Hollen this weekend after the Maryland senator criticized other liberal politicians for not endorsing New York City mayoral frontrunner Zohran Mamdani like he has. Technically, Jeffries' spokesperson Justin Chermol took the swipe in a new report from the New York Times. Chermol, when asked if Jeffries was moving towards an official endorsement in the New York City race, said the representative would have more to say, quote, well in advance. of November 4th election before hitting Van Hollen with this wisecrack. Quote, meanwhile, confused New Yorkers are asking themselves the question, Chris Van who? So let's just mock misdirection. I'll tell you, that's something. Not that I care about, like, dignity and respect for in the halls of Congress.
I don't know. I think there's a benefit to Mamdani if he doesn't get a endorsement from that snake. It might. I feel like it could be the opposite. I understand the criticism of the hypocrisy of these Democrats. You're absolutely 100% right on that. But just from a technical standpoint, as someone who understands campaigns, if I were Mamdani, I would be 10,000 feet away from Jeffries on this. And if Jeffries endorsed me, I would be attempting to distance myself because Jeffries is a train wreck, a maniac, and his polling numbers are in the trash. So he has room to talk right now.
Well, I'll also say, if the Democratic Party cares about winning elections, which I'm not sure is the main objective, as Bernie infamously said, the Democratic Party would rather go down on the Titanic as long as they're staying first class. But at the end of the day, if they don't endorse him, you are opening it up for 2028, whoever it is, whether it's AOC or Ro Khanna or somebody kind of progressive. If a progressive loses again, which it will probably be rigged, but putting that aside, you're giving license to the Bernie people, AOC people, progressives, Mamdani supporters, not to support, Democratic nominee Gavin Newsom, or God forbid Pete Buttigieg, or Pete Buttigieg, and they're just going to.
Let's be real; they shouldn't be anyway. Maybe these endorsements of these refusals to endorsements of Mamdani is ironically they think it's going to hurt him, but I think they're handing him a gift.
Right, but they're fucking
the approval
themselves.
rating of the Democratic Party itself is what, at 22% right now nationwide. In New York, it's extraordinarily low.
But I'm saying they're screwing themselves even further in 2028 because if there's some funny business that goes on, by the way, if Adams drops out, creating a straight race between Cuomo, well, not a straight race because what's his face? Curtis Sliwa would be in it. But if something goes on where Mamdani loses, which I don't expect, and you didn't have the endorsements from top Democratic Party people, you better believe. Because with their endorsements, by the way, then comes the support of the unions who back them, the whole political machine. So it's kind of a domino effect. So that's kind of the benefit. But it just shows you, like we were just saying, there's no core ideology to any of these right-wing grifters who, were, free speech warriors until somebody celebrated Charlie Kirk's death. There's no core ideology to any of these Democratic Party fucking charlatans. They didn't actually believe you should unite with the Democratic nominee.
No.
They believed you should unite with the corporate whores, Hillary and Biden. You should unite with the corporate status quo people. And to be clear,
status quo people are like, what bucket are you putting us in?
To be clear, I want to stay consistent. AOC deserves some shame too. She waited till the day of the congressional election to endorse Nina Turner. Okay? She waited till the day of that election to endorse Nina Turner for Congress. Cori Bush didn't endorse her. Rashida Tlaib didn't endorse her. Ayanna Pressley didn't endorse her the second time around. I'm talking about.
No. This is nothing new in that way, Jordan, because, I saw Zach Riegelstein ran in Maine, won the primary. The Democratic Party came to him and they said, and this was a candidate that I supported when I worked at Brand New Congress who was running for U.S. Senate in Maine. They came to him and they said, pay $250,000 in your dues, which are dues that candidates have to pay. Didn't have that in the campaign, would have hamstrung the campaign. We said, no, Can't pay this $250,000. They left him off of all of the printed materials. They ended up backing the Republican. Paula Jean Swearingen won her primary in West Virginia. The Democratic Party apparatus ended up throwing behind Shelley Moore Capito and keeping her in office. So, and we've covered many of those stories at Status Coup as well. This long legacy of not backing candidates, in fact, doing the opposite of endorsements, and sometimes even backing whoever the GOP candidate is, in order to suppress leftist candidates or any candidates that are calling for real economic reforms, that are calling for things like universal health care, that are calling for federal jobs guarantee or rent control or anything that could actually help the American people when it comes to our pocketbooks, food on our table, roofs over our head, jobs. Why do they do that? Because of dark money. Because of the Citizens United ruling that allows corporations to donate to candidates. They have donors in their pockets. They are more loyal to them than they are to us. Just like Jordan always says, the United Corporations of America runs the political apparatus of the Democratic National Committee.
And I don't know if you noticed, Zaina, we've done some little studio enhancement here at the Coup. We got the upside down flag.
Nice.
Now we got new brick, thanks to John Farina and our new producer, Michelle, trekked out here to redo my studio. So everything's clicking now. We're looking top shape. We got the book behind me, We the Poison. Go get your We the Poison, my book from last year. Won 3 awards. No big deal. And lastly, I mean, she's getting praise for this, which I don't understand. New York Governor Kathy Hochul writes an op-ed yesterday, why I'm endorsing Zohran Mamdani. So she finally came out of hibernation. The New York governor endorsed the nominee after he won the nomination weeks ago or months ago at this point. And she feels the need. I have to write a whole New York Times piece justifying why I'm endorsing him rather than just like, he's the nominee. So yeah, I endorse him. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but basically she points out that, well, and by the way, she's talking to her donors. She's talking to AIPAC, not like New Yorkers here. This is donor massaging and maintenance. But she's saying, I'm endorsing him. I've had frank conversations with him. We've had our disagreements. She points out bad things supposedly he said about police, concerns over his stance on Israel, yada, yada, yada. But the New York governor has to qualify with a New York Times op-ed why she's endorsing the nominee. And by the way,
does she say in there, I swear I'll still keep putting National Guard in the subway. Don't worry about that.
Well, she's openly said, I'm not going to sign off because she has to approve any tax hikes on corporations of the wealthy in New York City as the governor. She says she won't. Even if he wins with an overwhelming mandate for just that, she says she won't. Because we can't let the billionaires leave New York, even though they're not going to leave New York. They're not. And you know what? If they do, goodbye. The economy is not working for working people in New York as it is, with them working with these wealthy fucks living here. And it's only wealthy fucks crying hysterical about they're going to leave. Whether they stay or go, it doesn't actually really affect workers at the Amazon warehouse in Staten Island, blue collar workers in New York, even professional workers in New York. Yes, she's up for election next year. Good point. So she had to qualify this support. I mean, the whole thing is laughable. And I say, Zaina, I've covered Bernie 2016, Bernie 2020, the Iowa app scandal. It ain't over till it's over. Zohran Mamdani supporters, progressives cannot get too comfortable that he's going to win, because there is never, ever take for granted the fuckery of the Democratic Party. And AOC, by the way, she won the primary. But they didn't see her coming at all. They saw him building. They saw him growing, and now they have several months to try and screw him out of the general. I'm not trying to be conspiratorial, but I'm just saying, don't just assume he's going to win. And by the way, hold him accountable too, because even if he wins the mayorship, to a certain degree, yeah, he'll have to compromise a little bit because you're dealing with, as a mayor, unions. A lot of them are more corporate in New York, Wall Street, the governor. You can't just put on your Che Guevara shirt and say revolution. But if he wins,
Why
should
not? No,
if he wins, should do what Bernie didn't and what others did and say, fuck it. We're going to go and we're going to put pressure on the governor to approve these tax hikes on corporations and the wealthy. That's the moment we're in. The people actually are saying enough. Yeah, Bernie was right. Enough is enough. And we're with you. Not only will we knock on doors to help you win, but we will now help you in whatever way you ask. Send out the bat signal and we'll pressure the governor. We'll pressure whoever we have it do non-violently. All right.
Yeah.
Any parting thoughts? I got to go take care of the kitties.
Support Status Coup at statuscoup.com/join.
And to be clear, I want to make something very clear. I don't really think people realize, and maybe I'm not conveying it in a way that I need to. I don't think people realize how much we do with how little, if that's worded correctly. Like an outlet, More Perfect Union, for example. They do good work. They cover a lot of labor issues. They have a staff of 35 people.
Yeah.
We have a staff of, right now, myself, Colin, Michelle, John, 3.5. John is still freelance. I'd like to make him full-time, but I need your help. So Democracy Now!, I don't know the number, a lot more than us. Breaking Points, I don't know the number, a lot more than us. The Young Turks, let's not compare, a lot more than us. We are probably the smallest of independent outlets that do the most. I would argue we do more than the outlets I convey. It's not that we're better. It's just we do more in the context of we're out there on the ground, breaking news.
On the ground coverage, absolutely.
Covering protests. So at the end of the day, I'm very proud of all we have accomplished. But at a certain point, whether it's professional or personal, let's just face it, you plateau. You're only able to do a certain amount with the resources you have. And the certain amount we do is great. But I'm not in this just to cover. I'm in this to change shit. I'm in this preferably to put some fuckers in jail that are corrupt. I'm in this to maybe wake up enough of the masses to activate, to do something, to change things. And it's very hard to do that if you only have a couple people doing the work. So that's why we're constantly pushing you to join us at a reasonable amount. $5 a month. There's plenty of people that can't even afford that. Totally respect that. But I think we're so used to, with YouTube and podcasts and this and that, to just getting content for free. But this isn't content. This is journalism, right? So if you want actual living, breathing journalism that goes out there, not for clickbait, but for real investigative journalism, for what I consider justice journalism, you'd be surprised how far we could go if we could get thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands. Right now, we have about 3,500 paying members. If we can get that up to 5,000, if we can get that up to 10,000 at $5 a month, $10 a month, that creates a real infrastructure.
We can invest in on the ground. We can invest in investigative work. It costs money. We have had to put stories on the table and wait because it cost money to do a Freedom of Information Act request for certain stories. We have had to wait because it cost money to request documents. It cost money to travel there on stories that we really wanted to cover, but we have to be factually accurate and we have to have the evidence and the witnesses for you, the right sources for you. And sometimes we don't have the revenue in order to be able to do pieces like that, in order to be able to get on the ground where we want to go, in order to be able to request the documents that we want to request. I mean, there were times that it took Jordan a while to get the documents requested for his reporting on Flint. And part of that was simply that gets expensive. Something as simple as that may not be thought about every day, but that gets expensive. Requesting documents from government agencies that are going to come back redacted, but you have to request adds up. So there's a ton of things that it could help us with. And if you could, please donate to help maintain some real on the ground journalism with the death of newspapers, the change in it being hot button issues, and that's all that we hear, and we don't hear any more reporting. We're not just debate bros. We're not just talking heads. Please help us out if you can.
Absolutely. And also, to be clear, with more of a team, I'd like to blow this thing up. I'd like to do live events. I'd like to do more on the ground. We'd like to grow our podcasting, like original podcasts, not just turning YouTube channels into a podcast, but like an actual podcast with long form interviews of activists, community members that will never get on CNN. There's a lot of things we would like to do, but you could only do so much.
Yeah, help get me a show, dang it. Donate today.
I've been trying to give Ron a weekly comedy show, but I got to pay him. That takes
that
production.
Would actually be really cool. That would be
I'd like
really
to I'd like to bring on Zaina to do it. I mean, I'd like to do a lot of things. I'd like to go, I'd like to do a lot of things. So statuscoup.com/join. And if you're already a member and you're thinking about ways you could help, we also have ways, statuscoup.com/donate. You could set up a monthly recurring donation, a one-time donation, whatever floats your boat. All right. Thanks, everybody. Let me read what we got here. Make sure you sign up also for Zaina's Substack. The link is in the description. Bullhorn Bulletin. She does investigative work. New Status Coup member, Mo. Thank you, Mo. Say $2. This was a MAGA inside job blood sacrifice. I don't know. We don't have evidence for that, but
they're treating it that way regardless. So
yes. Nadia, €5. The lies about trans people being responsible for it look like a prelude to doing away with trans people. They're saying a former roommate, trans lover, incited him. I mean, they're basically trying to get rid of trans people before this. But yes, I agree. And again, jury's out. I don't even know if any of that's true. Maybe he did have a trans roommate. I don't know if they were romantically involved, and I don't know if that was the motivation. We have to wait. We have to wait to really find out the facts. Michelle, thanks again. 10 Status Coup memberships you gifted. So appreciate that. Tin became a YouTube member. Thank you. SHK.
And I'll actually be doing a show with 10 later on today. So look for that on Bullhorn Bulletin as well.
Awesome. Thank you, SHK, $10. And as a reminder, I'll be live tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock in the morning. So that's 6 o'clock on the West Coast. Might be too early for you folks, but for those of you on the East Coast, check us out. Statuscoup.com/join. I will be live, even though my little river is having his 4-month regression and was up at fucking 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. this morning, keeping me up. I'm exhausted, and it probably happened tomorrow too, but I'll be live on the ground outside the courthouse. He'll be Mangione back in court at 9 a.m. Eastern time, 6 a.m. Pacific, 8 a.m. Central, or 8 a.m. Central. You know the drill. So please support us. And thank you, Zaina, for joining us. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Oh, if you missed it, check out my video I did earlier on they're basically trying to revoke passports for those who commit the crime of criticizing Israel. So make America great. Have a good one.